Israel is caught in a rapture crisis, with alarming events unfolding in recent hours. Yes, you heard it right. From unexpected twists to heart-pounding developments, all the end-time prophecies are happening right now in the land of Israel. So let's dive into this video today to uncover the truth behind these shocking events. You won't want to miss a single moment of this gripping saga. Some people think that wars might be a sign that the world is ending. But it's important to remember that wars have happened throughout history, even in ancient times like the ones mentioned in the Bible. For example, in Exodus 17, there was a battle between the Amalekites and the Israelites. Moses, the leader, had to keep his hands raised for his people to win. In Judges 7, there was another battle involving Gideon and the Midianites. God told Gideon to send most of his soldiers home, keeping only 300. This was to show that victory would come from God, not just human strength. In both stories, the battles were unusual. In Exodus, victory depended on Moses' raised hands. In Judges, Gideon's army was intentionally reduced to show God's power, not their numbers, would lead to success. Confusion struck the Midianite camp after Gideon and his 300 men used horns and broke jars, leading them to fight amongst themselves. However, the wars in the last days won't be like these ancient battles. Rapture. The concept of the rapture is a belief held by certain Christians, especially within American evangelicalism. It suggests an end-time event where deceased Christian believers will be resurrected and, along with living Christians, ascend in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air. Different opinions exist regarding the timing of the rapture and whether Christ's return will happen in one event or two. Pre-tribulationism, the most widely held belief among rapture believers, suggests the rapture occurs before a 7-year tribulation, leading to Christ's second coming and a 1,000-year messianic kingdom. However, this perspective faces disputes within evangelicalism, with some advocating for a post-tribulation rapture. Recently, many prophecies have been fulfilled in Israel, indicating rapture is a lot nearer than it seems. But before that, let's understand the history of Israel. History of Israel. The story of Israel is like an ancient tale passed down through the ages. It all began with Abraham, a significant figure in religions like Judaism and Islam. He's known as the father of these faiths because of his sons, Isaac and Ishmael. His descendants faced hardships, such as slavery in Egypt, before finally settling in Canaan, which we now call Israel. The name Israel comes from Abraham's grandson, Jacob. Israel has always been a sacred place for people who believe in one God. Many civilizations and empires have valued this land, each worshiping the same God. It's like a treasure chest filled with stories from various cultures. Around 1000 BC, the Israelite tribes united under kings like Saul, David, and Solomon. Solomon built the first temple on a special site called the Temple Mount, signifying God's promise to the Jewish people. But peace didn't last forever. The Assyrians and Babylonians invaded parts of Israel, even destroying the temple. Later, the Persians helped the Jews rebuild it. Fast forward to the 1st century, Christianity began with Jesus in Israel. Sadly, the Romans destroyed the temple during a war in 70 CE. These events profoundly influenced Jewish identity and impacted global history. In the 1920s and 1930s, many Jews migrated to Palestine to escape anti-Semitism in Europe. This immigration changed the region, with Jews establishing new settlements. However, tensions rose with Arab communities fearing loss of their land, leading to violent conflicts between Jews and Arabs, each vying for control over the area. The devotion of Israelites. The Israelites were known for their deep devotion to God, which they expressed not through grand buildings, but through worship. Their beliefs, encapsulated in the Hebrew Bible, especially the first 5 books known as the Torah, had a lasting impact. These texts tell the story of Abraham's divine call to journey to the promised land of Canaan. Abraham passed on this divine plan to his son Isaac and later to Jacob, who was renamed Israel, giving rise to the tribes of Israel. After enduring centuries of slavery in Egypt, the Israelites were led to liberation by Moses. With Moses' guidance, they began their conquest of Canaan, led by Joshua. The Bible vividly recounts Israel's conflicts with neighboring peoples, notably the Philistines. King David, a prominent figure, played a crucial role in conquering Jerusalem and establishing it as Israel's capital. Solomon, David's son, built the first holy temple in Jerusalem to house the Ark of the Covenant. However, after Solomon's death in 931 BC, the monarchy split into two kingdoms, Israel and Judah. This division marked a significant turning point for the Israelites, leading to distinct developments in the histories of these two kingdoms. What is Israel now? Looking at Israel today, we can see ancient predictions coming true. The land promised to the Jewish people long ago is now their home, showing that it lasts a very long time when God promises something. The return of the Jewish people to their homeland fulfills these old predictions. But there's more to this incredible story. Israel faces tough weather with hot and dry conditions and naturally infertile land. Despite these challenges, the people of Israel are growing abundant crops from land that seemed barren. Even their trees produce more than trees in other places like Russia. How do they do it? They trust in a promise from the Bible, specifically from Zechariah chapter 8, verse 12. This verse says, "The seed will grow well, the vine will yield its fruit, the ground will produce its crops, and the heavens will drop their dew." It means they believe that God will help their crops grow even in tough conditions. It might sound surprising, but we can see God's promises happening right before our eyes. It's fascinating to witness the fulfillment of these ancient predictions. One of these predictions, made by a person named Zechariah, is related to current political events in the Middle East. In Zechariah's prediction in chapter 12, something significant is foretold. It says, "I am going to make Jerusalem a cup that sends all the surrounding peoples reeling. Judah will be besieged, as well as Jerusalem. On that day, when all the nations of the earth are gathered against her, I will make Jerusalem an immovable rock for all the nations. Anyone who tries to move it will hurt themselves." These words from the ancient prediction describe Jerusalem as a strong force that remains steadfast even when facing difficulties. Reconstruction of the Third Temple. Many people have a strong desire to build the Third Temple in Jerusalem, considering it even more important than the temples that were destroyed before. Even though it hasn't been built yet, it holds immense importance in Judaism. The Third Temple is highly significant for many, particularly Orthodox Jews. They see it as more special than the temples of the past that no longer exist. Despite its absence, there's great anticipation surrounding it. For Orthodox Jews, it's not just a building, it's a deeply meaningful symbol of holiness and a sacred place for prayer. Since 1987, a group called the Temple Movement has been preparing for the construction of the Third Temple, slowly working towards this goal in the 21st century. While many people in modern Israel and around the world aren't deeply religious, Orthodox Jews take this matter seriously, seeing it as a spiritual duty and excluding non-religious individuals from involvement. They are the ones who brought back the Sanhedrin, a religious group responsible for overseeing temple regulations, to ensure that the temple is rebuilt correctly. For Orthodox Jews, rebuilding the temple is crucial because they believe it has a vital role in making the world a better place. They are convinced that progress can only happen with the reconstruction of the temple. Gershon Solomon, who leads the Temple Mount Faithful, is actively working to gather support in Israel for rebuilding the temple. The group has organized protests at the temple site, created a special cornerstone for the Third Temple, and made items for its use. According to Solomon, building the Third Temple is necessary to fulfill the destiny of the people mentioned in the Bible who live in the Holy Land. The Sanhedrin, responsible for temple affairs, prepares for temple services by activities such as planting a special tree with plants needed for the Third Temple. Speaking for the Sanhedrin, Rabbi Hillel Weiss emphasizes that the temple connected the land and God. Contrary to common beliefs associating sacrifices with animals and blood, many sacrifices actually involved plants that grew in Israel. It's interesting to note that the return of Israel to the Promised Land and the construction of the Third Temple align with biblical prophecies from prophets like Ezekiel and Isaiah, who spoke of God's promise to gather his people. In the Bible, there's a quote from Ezekiel that says, "Then the nations will know that I, the Lord, make Israel holy when my sanctuary is among them forever." This means that when God's special place, the sanctuary, is with the Jewish people, everyone will see that Israel is unique and sacred. Another quote from Isaiah says, "I will say to the north, 'Give them up,' and to the south, 'Do not hold them back.' Bring my sons from afar and my daughters from the ends of the earth." This shows that God wants his sons and daughters from all over the world to return to the Promised Land, gathering them from every corner. Even though some believe that Yeshua, Jesus, serves in the true tabernacle in heaven, the desire to build the Third Temple isn't just about constructing a physical building. The desire to build the Third Temple is rooted in the belief that it would serve as a dwelling place for God's special presence. A quote from the Bible emphasizes this, stating, "Let them construct a sanctuary for me, that I may dwell among them." The prophet Ezekiel observed God's special presence leaving the old temple, but also foresaw its return and permanence in a new, eternal home in Jerusalem. Throughout history, a wise Jewish philosopher remarked that the Third Temple isn't just a repetition of past events. It symbolizes the eternal presence of God with his people. Therefore, building the Third Temple is not just a way to honor the past. It's a demonstration that God's presence is constant and enduring with his people. Discovery of the Pool of Siloam. The Pool of Siloam was a significant discovery, measuring 53 feet long, 18 feet wide, and 19 feet deep. It was expertly crafted with natural rocks. Unfortunately, it was destroyed during Babylon's attack on Jerusalem and the Second Temple. However, it was rebuilt during Nehemiah's time and later expanded under the rule of Herod the Great. This pool held great importance as a place where poor and sick people sought healing, particularly during the Feast of Tabernacles, which celebrates the Israelites' freedom from Egypt. The Festival of Booths, also known as Sukkot, is a major event in Judaism, commemorating the Israelites' survival in the desert. People build temporary sukkahs like their ancestors' shelters to express gratitude to God and pray for rain. Sukkot is celebrated worldwide in Jewish communities. During Sukkot, a priest would draw water from the Pool of Siloam in a golden pitcher, singing psalms joyfully. Then he poured the water on the altar's west side, a ritual connected to Isaiah 12:3. Isaiah 12:3 states, "With joy you will draw water from the wells of salvation." Pouring water during Sukkot symbolized drawing joyful water from the wells of salvation. It was a joyful ceremony during the Festival of Booths, with the Pool of Siloam playing a crucial role. Despite the original pool's destruction, its rebuilding allowed people to continue celebrating and finding joy in their traditions. Water libation ceremony. On October 12th, a special ceremony known as the water libation occurred, reminiscent of an ancient temple tradition. Led by special priests called Kohanim and Levites, accompanied by musical instruments, they followed ancient paths from the old city of Jerusalem to Shiloh, also known as Siloam Springs. The procession included chanting, dancing, and the sound of silver trumpets. Carrying a golden jug filled with water from the Shiloh pool, they set up a model altar and tools on the mountain summit, continuing ancient temple practices. The ceremony concluded with the rare priestly blessing and the Hakel ceremony, which happens once every 7 years. Although the Torah doesn't explicitly mention the water ceremony, people consider it part of Moses' oral teachings and celebrate it like a joyful holiday. This ceremony lasted 15 hours in the Old Temple and continued with celebrations throughout the night until the next morning's temple service. Participants from around the world gathered for Sukkot celebrations, making it a universal day of worship. During the last 6 days of Sukkot, a water ceremony and wine pouring were part of the morning service. Priests filled a flask with spring water and traveled from the temple to the Shiloh spring at the base of Mount Moriah. At the temple's courtyard, two priests poured wine and water into special holes on the stone altar for the ceremony. The Shiloh pool, also known as Shalom in English and Silwan in Arabic, holds biblical significance and is believed to have been revived vividly after the construction of the Third Temple. Pilgrims used to start their journey to Jerusalem at this pool for biblical feasts, cleansing themselves before presenting sacrifices in the inner court of the Temple Mount. Discovered in 2004, ongoing exploration reveals its historical importance. According to the Babylonian Talmud, the year following the Shemitah, a special year, is considered favorable for the Messiah's arrival. The prophecy in the book of Amos suggests the return of the tribe of Israel from other nations. The Talmud discusses the challenges before the Messiah comes, emphasizing the uncertain need for another physical temple. Instead, it suggests building a spiritual temple by living a devoted life to God and preparing for potential end-time challenges. A marriage in Temple Mount. In Jeremiah 33:11, there's a prophecy describing a joyful time marked by the voice of joy and the voice of gladness, symbolizing the happiness associated with the arrival of a future Messiah and the Third Temple. This prophecy has sparked a growing trend in Israel, where Jewish individuals visit the revered Temple Mount, seeing it as a sign of the Messiah's imminent coming. Recently, a couple from Rehovot and Tel Mond, Eitan Krantman and Coral Daisy Dean, got engaged on the Temple Mount, reflecting a practice gaining popularity among Jewish couples. They combined both stages of a traditional Jewish marriage, kiddushin, betrothal, and nisuin, wedding ceremony, under the chuppah. This emphasized the belief in humanity's creation in God's image and the establishment of an everlasting union. This significant event on the Temple Mount is linked to a verse from Jeremiah often recited at weddings, foretelling a time of joy and thanksgiving in the land. The Temple Mount includes historical gates for brides, grooms, and mourners, known as the Gate of Mercy. As more Jewish couples opt for the Temple Mount for their engagements, they see it as the fulfillment of ancient prophecies, such as Zechariah 8:20-22, which talks about people from various cities coming to Jerusalem to pray to the Lord. These occurrences are viewed as awe-inspiring and in line with biblical prophecies. Recent end-time prophecy fulfilled by Chinese president. China's President Xi Jinping has recently made statements that have captured global attention, signaling a significant shift in China's foreign policy. His remarks are marked by the use of metaphors and warnings, leaving many pondering their implications. Xi's rhetoric has been especially notable, employing metaphors and language associated with significant events, including wars and biblical prophecies. One instance that has drawn particular attention is Xi Jinping's reference to a scenario resembling Revelation 16:12-13, which describes the drying up of the great river Euphrates and the emergence of impure spirits resembling frogs. These biblical references evoke thoughts of apocalyptic battles, prompting questions about the true intentions behind Xi's words. One must examine China's evolving foreign policy and military posture to understand the context of Xi Jinping's statements. Historically, the Communist Party of China has prioritized economic development and diplomacy over military confrontation. However, recent developments indicate a departure from this approach. In the current year, China has adopted a more assertive stance globally, as seen in its actions towards Australia. Warnings issued regarding Taiwan, and even threats to shoot down an aircraft carrying a prominent U.S. representative visiting Taiwan. These actions represent a significant shift in China's willingness to engage in confrontations. Xi Jinping's directives to top national security officials to prepare for stormy seas highlight the seriousness of the challenges China sees ahead. The heightened complexity and intensity of national security concerns and calls for worst-case scenario planning suggest a proactive approach to addressing potential threats. While it's important not to read too much into these statements, they do indicate a growing sense of urgency within China's leadership. Recent reports have revealed stringent directives issued by President Xi Jinping, highlighting the need for accelerated upgrades to China's national security system and capabilities. This includes the development of a comprehensive risk surveillance and early warning system, enhanced national security education, and strengthened data and artificial intelligence security management. Xi Jinping's comprehensive approach to national security covers governance, economics, defense, culture, the environment, and cyberspace. This holistic strategy has led to implementing several laws and regulations to safeguard China against perceived threats. Additionally, Xi Jinping's directives extend to China's formidable military capabilities, which include the world's largest army. References to biblical prophecies, such as those found in Revelation 16, have sparked speculation about the role of China's military in future conflicts. The Book of Revelation, authored by the Apostle John, offers intriguing insights into potential future conflicts. One such depiction is of a massive army of 200 million soldiers emerging from the east. While interpretations of these prophetic visions vary, they lead many to ponder the significance of such immense forces and their potential role in historic battles. So what do you think of the rapture crisis in Israel? Comment below and subscribe for more.